Welcome to Oxford News This Week. I'm Elgin Nichols.
And I'm Terry Stiles. In this week's news, a new police chief is signed in, cupcakes and classic cars go together, and the Pollyant Trail needs our help.
Stay tuned, learn more about these stories and others. The Oxford News begins right now. It's official. Interim Chief Mike Solwald was sworn in as the Oxford Village new police chief after serving as interim chief for nearly 9 months. Last week, on September 12th, after serving the village for more than 2 decades, Solwald was surrounded by family, friends, and officers as the 46-year-old was sworn in by Addison Township Clerk Pauline Bennett. After taking the oath, his wife Shauna had the honor of pinning the gold badge on his chest. Congratulations, Oxford. You picked the cream of the crop.
Time spent trying to settle a long-running lawsuit concerning Elkview Estates ended up costing Oxford Township nearly $300,000 in state grant monies secured by the township in 2013 to help fix the stormwater drainage problems plaguing that area for years. Township Treasurer Joe Ferrari, who was handling the grant, says technically it was a 1-year grant and the township just hit its max. During last week's township board meeting, officials discussed what they were going to do and how they were going to meet the requirements necessary to receive the money from the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality before the September 30th deadline, and it didn't work.
There were more than 20 entries in last weekend's 4th annual Classic Car and Cupcake Challenge at the Addison Township Library, which helped raise money towards a future new library building. In the adults cupcake category, Rachel Phelps took first place with her vanilla cupcakes and vanilla bean frosting. In the children's category, 7-year-old Lily Elsorelli took first place with her delicious chocolate cupcakes and strawberry vanilla buttercream frosting. Sounds great. In the classic car contest, Stephanie Persico took first place with her 1978 Trans Am, and in the motorcycle category, Tim Cassidy took first place with his 1987 Harley Davidson. In addition, a bake sale was held during the event, raising over $100 in proceeds towards the library's new building fund.
A second public hearing of a request from Canadian-based company Energex for a Class 2 injection well permit from the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency has been scheduled to take place at the Oxford High School on October 12th at 6 p.m.
The Pollyant Trailway Management Council has the opportunity to win up to $10,000, but in order to get it, folks have to vote in an online contest, the first round for which ends at midnight on September 24th. The Bank of Ann Arbor's Birmingham office is donating $75,000 to 15 Oakland County nonprofit organizations. The kicker is, it's the public that gets to decide who gets the loot and how much they receive. The Pollyant is only one of 83 nonprofits vying for a piece of the pie.
In a 7-0 vote last week, Oxford Township Planning Commissioners approved a proposed private road to serve a 100-acre property owned by Wishes to House Foster Youth. As part of the motion, the township must notify all interested parties when the road construction permits are requested and to verify that the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality has evaluated the site to determine that moving the soil on it or stormwater runoff from it will not negatively impact other properties.
Oxford Township's officials last week voted to direct their attorney to research the draft ordinance language concerning door-to-door solicitors to prevent the possibility of being sued and ultimately losing a costly court battle. Officials fear the township's current ordinance, enacted in 1978, prohibiting uninvited solicitations, except those for charitable purposes, is a lawsuit waiting to happen.
Lake Villa Manufactured Home Community is expected to connect to Oxford Township's water system this week, which means it will have to start paying a debt service charge like everybody else. The only difference is Lake Villa, owned by the Bloomfield Hills-based Meritus Communities, will not have to pay immediately for all 151 of its home sites, regardless of whether or not they're occupied, thanks to an agreement approved by a 6-to-1 vote by the Township Board last week. According to the schedule included in the agreement, they will begin paying the debt service charge for 600 units as of August 1st. That's an approximation of the amount of homes currently occupied. That's it for Oxford News this week. If you'd like to learn more about these stories or others, pick up a copy of the Oxford Leader newspaper or catch us on our website, occtv.org, or YouTube, and of course, our regular cable channel, Charter Channel 191 and AT&T Channel 99.
Coming up soon, OCTV's very own Cody Wright with the Sports Report, and you won't want to miss Auto Talk and Science in the News with Dave Kenny, and John Ochins in back with school news.
Welcome back, John.
Welcome back.
I'm Terry Stiles. Thanks for watching Oxford News this week.
And I'm Elgin Nichols. Remember, always be kind to your friends and neighbors, and thanks for watching.
Hi, it's Connie from Connie's Kitchen. I just wanted to remind you to watch us on OCTV and Uverse and
Okay, cut.
this is Connie from Connie's Kitchen at Treetop Lodge, reminding you to watch my program on OCTV and on Charter and on
Cut.
Hi, it's Connie from Connie's Kitchen here at Treetop Lodge, reminding you to watch us on OCTV and YouTube and Charter and
Alright, cut. I think you forgot your lines, Connie.
I think I don't have
Should
lines.
have called lines.
Lines, there we go. Lines. Okay, 3, 2, 1
Here we
me.
go. 3, 2.
Join me here at Treetop Lodge. This is Connie from Connie's Kitchen, reminding you that you can watch us on OCTV and YouTube, Charter Channel 199, Uverse Channel 99. Can you imagine if we had to go through this every time? Yeah, right? Okay, see ya. This is Connie from Connie's Kitchen here at Treetop Lodge, and I want to remind you to join me here at the Lodge for Connie's Kitchen on OCTV, on YouTube, on Charter Channel 199, on Uverse Channel 99, and enjoy the show.
Welcome to Science in the News. I'm Dave Kenny, and these stories are taken from the publication New Scientist. In our first story, people who are blind use parts of their brains that normally handle for vision to process language as well as sounds, highlighting the brain's extraordinary capability to requisition unused real estate for new functions. Neurons in the parts of the brain normally responsible for vision synchronize their activity to sounds of speech in blind people, says Olivier Collignon at the Catholic University in Louvain. The finding builds on previous research showing that parts of the brain responsible for vision can learn to process other kinds of information, including touch and sound, in people who are blind. Collignon and his colleagues made the discovery using magnetoencephalography, or MEG, which measures electrical activity in the brain. While they were being scanned, groups of sighted and blind volunteers played 3 clips from an audio book. One recording was clear and easy to understand, another was distorted but still intelligible, and the third was modified so as to be completely incomprehensible. Both groups showed activity in the brain's auditory cortex, a region that processes sounds, while listening to the clips. But the volunteers who were blind showed activity in the visual cortex as also. The blind volunteers also appeared to have neurons in their visual cortex that fired in sync with speech in the recording, but only when the clip was intelligible. This suggests that these cells are vital to understanding language, says Collignon. The visual cortex contains the relevant architecture, he says, to go from sound processing to language comprehension. The discovery highlights how malleable our brains are, says Collignon, but he thinks there may be a limit to this. It's unlikely that any part of the brain can eventually learn any function, he says. Instead, there may be a set of rules laid down in our genes which brain regions can follow. Past research has found, for example, that a part of the visual cortex is responsible for tracking moving objects in sighted people. The same region seems to track the sound of moving objects in blind people. There is also a visual aspect to understanding language, says Collignon. It's easier to understand what someone is saying if you are looking at them and watching the movement of their lips, for instance. Brain regions are more dedicated to a function rather than to an input, he says. Colin Yan hopes the research will aid in the development of treatments to restore vision. Several groups are currently working on bionic eyes and stem cell transplants, for instance. By better understanding how the brain can adapt to new inputs, researchers may be able to predict whether such treatments can rewrite the recipient's brain to allow them to see. Wow. And on the medical front, treachery. It turns out that chemotherapy sometimes fails because bacteria inside cells can destroy anti-cancer drugs, rendering them useless. Ravit Straussman at the Weizmann Institute of Science in Israel and his team found that skin cells infected with mycoplasma bacteria prevented the chemo drug gemcitabine from killing neighboring cancer cells. We found that the bacteria internalize, then degrade the drug, deactivating it, says Straussman. After analyzing 133 samples of pancreatic cancer tissue, the team found that 86 were infected with types of bacteria that could make the long form of the enzyme. In further experiments, Straussman showed that antibiotics stop bacteria with the long form from destroying gemcitabine. His team now is investigating how bacteria sabotage another cancer drug called oxaliplatin, and we don't think our gemcitabine discovery is an isolated phenomenon, he says. And in the sea, there aren't just fewer fish in the sea, there are few older fish too. Their numbers are in fisheries around the U.S. and Europe have fallen by an average of 72%. Louis Barnett at University of Washington in Seattle and his colleagues looked at records covering 63 fisheries spanning 24 to 140 years. They used several methods to work out the age of the fish, including examining otoliths, stones in their ears that grow annual rings just like trees do. A 2010 study of 10 fisheries found that a 25% fall in old fish. But Barnett used models to estimate numbers before large-scale fishing began, revealing the stark long-term decline. In some species, like the Atlantic cod, populations of older fish fell over 95%. Losing older fish may not sound bad, as they might be near death, but old fish tend to produce more offspring per spawning. They also adapt to changing conditions better, for instance, by spawning at different times and locations. This makes short-term environment change less likely to affect the population badly. Having only a few old fish leaves fisheries prone to collapse, but they can be saved. One way is to regularly stop fishing in certain areas to let numbers recover. Alternately, slot limits could set minimum and maximum sizes of fish that can be harvested, and we'll have more to eat if they do. Well, that's it for this edition of Science in the News. I'm Dave Kenny. Stay tuned to Oxford Community Television.
Canine Stray Rescue does just that. Rescue stray dogs for new families. But they need your help. Become a volunteer at Canine Stray Rescue League of Michigan. Take dogs for walks, help them socialize with others, and help them get adopted. Fill out an application and help a family add a new member today.
I'm John Ochins, and welcome to the Oxford Wildcats School Update. A major focus of the last few school years has been on our international student program. At one time, there was talk of a dorm housing 200 Chinese international kids. Things are quite different now. Chun Chun Tang is one of the coordinators of the program.
There are 5 students from India, along with 2 additional students from China, so accounting for a total of 7 full-time seated students here at Oxford that are from foreign countries.
A couple of questions I want to ask you about that. First of all, that's a big change for you guys. You're used to dealing with much bigger numbers than that. I guess the program's in kind of a transition period, huh?
This year is indeed transitional in nature for us. We have made the decision to accept full-time international students at the high school for 1 year only, which is a change from the previous cohorts where the students were able to attend for 2 years. So that change, along with some political landscape, I think the global perception of our nation at this time, that those combined have indeed had an impact on our program. But in retrospect, we are thankful for the transition because the direction of the international program going forward, we are hoping to diversify, which is why we worked actively on bringing in students from India this year. And also we're trying to learn what the right size for our community, for our high school building is, whether that is 40, 50, or 60 students. So we are thankful for having the time, and being able to take this year to learn and to hopefully come up with a sustainable direction for the international program.
It was the Wei Ming organization that we worked with to get our Chinese students. I asked Chun Chun who it is now.
From India, we work with a non-profit organization that's based in New Jersey. It is founded by an individual of Indian heritage who is an educator in New York, and he has been able to connect us with schools in India where we're receiving our students.
Chun Chun says there will be periodic visits from other kids, such as from our sister school in Mexico. They'll need local homes to help out for those. As you know, we'll have a bond issue on our ballot in November. Major school renovations. Tony Sarkins is our maintenance director. He points out some road issues over at OES.
Child care. This is going into our child care.
Now, how long has it been since this was paved?
It's probably it's probably back in the, I would say probably 80s. I can't tell you for sure the exact date on it, but I know you can tell that this is every bit of 20 years old.
And you were saying like what they're doing to a lot of our roads now is they're coming in with these big machines and taking off just the top of the pavement and then replacing just that. But
there's some savings in some of those, but we can't do that in this case. There's some parking lots in the district that we can do some milling and recapping on it, but in this case, this is a full reconstruction on this driveway.
Tony points out a lighting issue as well.
That's a high-pressure sodium fixture that's up there. They're very inefficient. We're going to, in the bond, take those fixtures off and replace them with LED fixtures. Those are probably 400-watt bulbs. We replace them with LED bulbs. It would be more of, like 50, 60 watts.
Playgrounds are also on the list.
This is a new playscape that PTO put together, the program. People, they support it and raised the money and did a community build on this and put this webscape in there with that wood chip mulch in there. So our goal is to take now this playground right here, upgrade where we can, and put a new mulch in this whole area.
If the issue passes in November, it would increase your tax bill by about $75 per $100,000 of home evaluation. Pat Mueller is over at our Early Childhood Center. I asked her how it's going over there.
It's a busy start to the year. We have exciting news in that we have our free preschool program is now available at Clear Lake Elementary. We weren't able to have it there last year, and this year we can, so we're really, really thrilled about that. We still have some openings. We also have openings at our Leonard site.
Are there special qualifications for that?
Really there's only 3. You have to live in Oakland County. You have to have a child who is 4 before September 1st of this year. So they have to be 4 already. Mm-hmm. And there's income guidelines. But it's really more for middle income families. So for example, a family of 4 can make right about $70,000 a year and still qualify for the free program.
I also asked if there's any change in the approach to language with the transition to Spanish starting in the grade schools. Any more of that?
Well, we have a number of Spanish-speaking teachers. We have a number of bilingual teachers. So, and the best way in early childhood is just to talk to them in both languages. This is how young children learn language.
Pat Mueller at Oxford Early Childhood. That's the Oxford School Update for this week. This is Oxford Community Television, keeping it local.
What's happening, Oxford fans? Cody Wright here once again with the Sports Report. We're in the middle of our fall sports season, and I hope most of you are making it out to support the athletes. Let's take a look and see how things are shaping up. Both boys and girls cross-country teams will be headed to Lake Orion on the 26th to compete in what is called the Jamboree. Other schools competing include Rochester, Seaholm, Troy, Adams, and Royal Oak. It is going to be high in competition with abundance of athletes, so let's hope our Oxford guys and gals can finish high and bring back a win. The boys soccer team also went on the road and faced Fenton last week. The intensity was high, and for soccer, so was the score. Both teams were able to overcome each other. The final score ended with a tie of 4-4. We then returned to home and took on Seaholm on Tuesday. Couldn't get a win this time, but the score was close, 1-0. And the boys tennis took on Farmington and Lake Orion last week. We went on the road to Farmington first and struggled, falling to a score of 6-2. We then returned home the next day to take on our rivals. However, we did not see any more luck and lost 8-0. It seems the tennis team is struggling to get things going. We then faced Royal Oak on Wednesday on the road and lost 5-3. Although the score was closer, it still shows that we are having trouble pulling off the win. Hopefully they will regroup and turn this around. The football team took on Southfield A&T on the road last week and fell to a final of 32-12. However, our freshman club took on A&T the day before at home and won 52-24. The football team has still yet to play their first home game this season, so I'm sure we will get back to what we are used to, and that is winning. Also, the girls golf club went on the road to Adams High School last week and won overall with 221 points, our competition with 200. The girls swim team also had a meet on the road against Ferndale and won by a landslide, our 133 points to their 45. And last but not least, the always loved volleyball team struggled at home against Troy on Tuesday. The final score was 3-1, which made our overall record of 3-5-2. Well, that should just about wrap up this week's report. For more info on these games and others, go to oxfordathletics.org. You can look at statistics, records, and game breakdowns all right there. That's oxfordathletics.org. While you're at it, might as well check us out at occtv.org. We have our coverage of the sporting events along with many other programs we think you'll like. It's all there on our YouTube page, which you can access through the website. Again, that is occtv.org. And that should do it for this week's report. I want to thank everyone for watching and remind you to keep an eye on your schedule and make it out to some of these games. The season will be over before you know it, so don't miss the fun. Until next time, I'm Cody Wright. Go Wildcats.
Welcome to this edition of Auto Talk. I'm Dave Kenny, and these stories are taken from the publication Automotive News. In our first story, General Motors is reducing production at powertrain factories in Canada and the U.S. as a result of a strike at the Chevrolet Equinox plant in Ontario. GM made related production adjustments to the St. Catharines propulsion plant, Spring Hill, and Flint engine operations as a result of the labor dispute in CAMI, GM said in a statement. The company works to minimize these short-term impacts, they said. About 2,500 employees at the CAMI plant in Ingersoll, Ontario struck the automaker after contract expired and a tentative deal had not been reached. The St. Catharines plant in Ontario supplies CAMI with transmissions for the popular crossover. The majority of Equinox engines come from Spring Hill, Tennessee, while a smaller number come from a plant in Flint, Michigan. Tim McKinnon, chairman of Unifor Local 199, representing about 1,400 workers in St. Catharines, said 225 employees at the transmission line had been told not to report to work last Monday. The transmission line works 2 shifts per day in St. Catharines. Workers spent the week stockpiling transmissions but have run out of room to store them. Canadian parts maker Magna International said last Wednesday it was suspending the supply of parts to the Kami plant. The parts maker said the decision affects the output of a few of its facilities in Ontario, but did not provide more details. Unifor said it had invited management to get talks rolling again. Hours after that call, GM announced the adjustments at other plants. And at BMW is reviewing the necessity of car keys. Ian Robinson, the company's board member responsible for sales, told Reuters. The fact that customers now all carry a smartphone and the availability of a BMW app which allows customers to unlock their vehicle has made old-fashioned keys less relevant. Honestly, how many people really need it, Robertson said in an interview at the Frankfurt Car Show, explaining that customers no longer had to put the key in the ignition to make the car start. They never take it out of their pocket, so why need to carry it around? Robertson said, adding that the company was looking at getting rid of keys altogether. We are looking at whether it's feasible and whether we can do it. Whether we can do it right now or at some point in the future remains to be seen, Robertson said. And at Mazda Motor plans the electrification of all of its vehicles by the 2030s, a Japanese media organization reported, as more automakers shift strategies to meet tightening global emission regulations. The automaker will use electric motors in all of its models by that time, Kyodo News reported without citing sources. At the moment, Mazda's lineup does not include any all-electric vehicles, though it sells one hybrid model, a version of the Mazda 3. The company has said it will introduce electric powertrain technologies, including EVs, from 2019 on. To catch up with other larger automakers, including Nissan Motor, which already market electric cars, Mazda has partnered with Toyota Motor Corporation to develop technology. Meanwhile, it has developed an ultra-efficient gasoline engine which can be used in hybrids and plans to incorporate that into its cars from 2019. In unveiling the new technology last month, Mazda CEO Masamichi Kogai said the gasoline, diesel, and electric vehicle technologies would coexist in the future. The automaker, which also specializes in highly efficient diesel engines, on September 14th launched a new CX-8 model in Japan, which is currently only available as a diesel model. Other global automakers are planning to shift away from internal combustion engines towards electrification in the coming years. Volvo said in July that all of its new models from 2019 would use electric motors, while Jaguar Land Rover said this month that it had planned to roll out electrification across its lineup from 2020 on. And on the recall front, Fiat Chrysler Automobile said September 19th it will recall 494,000 medium and heavy-duty Ram pickups worldwide because of a water pump that could overheat and potentially cause a fire. The recall includes 2013 to 2017 model year Ram 2500 and 3500 pickups with 6.7-liter diesel engines, including 443,000 vehicles in the United States. Fiat Chrysler said it is not aware of any injuries related to the issue, but has reports of a small number of fire-related incidents. The company will inspect and potentially replace the water pump. Well, that's it for this edition of Auto Talk. I'm Dave Kenny, and as always, may the wind be at your back as you cruise down life's highways. Stay tuned to Oxford Community Television.